All right, hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach. There are some people I haven't seen before, in which case I'm Zach. Hello. Welcome to Creative and Intelligence Sessions, which is a celebration of people, ideas, and free food. So, just to start off, we're in a mad space. I quite like the fourth year space, but some of that appreciation must go to acknowledging the traditional owners and the custodians of this land, which I believe are the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. So I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, both past and present. If you've ever been here before, just some quick housekeeping. Water's over there if you want it. If you need to take a leak, they're down there in the corner. In case of a fire, just steal everything and scream. What do you actually do on fire? I think you just leave, you go down the stairs, pretend nothing's happening, and then you go out.
So it's not a drill.
And then you go down the line. Don't go on the elevators. Alright, so I think that's it. Yes, we're good. Okay, so that's all I need to legally say. But our first speaker is one of the most interesting characters of BCII. Good old Damo. I've heard from various sources that a 5-minute chat with Damo is more valuable than your entire tertiary education. Damo was born in 1932, and he is one of the most active, in the top 10 most active people on Facebook in the world. But today he's going to be talking about ideas that changed his life. So everyone, Oliver Damien.
I hope this is not one of those situations where you say, hey, your reputation exceeds you. So, just seriously, what we do here at FTDI, Faculty of Transdisciplinary Innovation, is not easy, you know? We're looking for new things. It's not easy. Most of the time, we're really trying to make sense what the bleep is going on, you know? So I thought I'd share some tools, cognitive tools that I've used in my life and to make decisions, to think about stuff, understand what's going on in the news and everything. All right, let's take 10,000 people randomly. Let's take them from anywhere on Earth. If you measure their height, it's gonna have a distribution. You know, and if you have those 10,000 people and then you add the tallest person in the world, the average is not gonna vary too much. If you add the Dutch people who are tallest people, it's still not gonna vary too much. And maybe you've learned this. It's a bell curve, it's a distribution, and I think it's used in our marking. I don't know. But no, that's good. And the reason why is that you average things. So what this helped me to understand is when people say, on the average, let's say women prefer people than things and men prefer things than people, you're talking about the average. You're not talking about a person. So I think people confuse that. And they say, oh, you say this, does that mean you hate women or something? No, it's just, you're just describing the data. Then why do you need to do that? You need to do that because otherwise, you're going to make a decision based on the one nearest you, the story that touches you. And we fall for it all the time. Like we see, they have pictures where you make you cry, make you angry, and then you make a decision without looking at the overall data. But this is what helped me. So you have to weigh both. Because if you're making a decision for a big group, then you want to see what's the distribution. But you don't need to be solely deciding based on this because there are other things in life that's not a bell curve. Like most of you have heard of the Pareto distribution. It's like 20% of the work is done by 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people. The percentages may vary, but it's been observed everywhere. And more so in wealth. So if you take the 10,000 people we sampled earlier, instead of measuring their height, you measure their weight. Not their weight, their wealth. We measure their wealth, and if you add Bill Gates or Warren Buffett into the mix, suddenly the average goes out of proportion. You have one observation, and everything you've observed is false. And it happens in the world of media, like we call it the fat head and the long tail. So you have people like Kardashians, they post a picture, they get 4 million likes. And most of us, like me, you get 16 lines. So you have like a big head of really popular people, and then a long tail. So once you see that, do you want to be in the really fight to get in the fat head? Or are you happy to create your existence in the long tail? So it makes you think. Now, the other thing that blew my mind was it's so hard to think exponentially because we evolved in the savannas of Africa where everything is linear. But now we live in an exponential world. What does that mean? Well, the best example I found was, let's say you put a bacteria in a jar, and the bacteria doubles. And then it will be full. You put the bacteria at 11 a.m. The jar will be full at 12 p.m. Now question, when is the jar half full?
5 minutes. 1 second. 1 second. 1 second.
It's 11:59. Which is weird because now, what does it say? Let's say for climate change. I don't know if it's exponential. You won't know it until it's too late, basically. And I've applied this in my life. I did keto for a while. Nothing happens. Boom! Suddenly, the weight drop. Or learning a language. I don't understand it. I keep doing the exercises. And suddenly, boom! I understand it. You see that? There's a lot of this exponential stuff happening. And that's why it's hard to understand. So, this exponential things has been recognized by the Old Testament, or the New Testament in this case, where the more you have, the more you have, and the less you have, the less. It's quite unfair if you think about it, but it's a phenomenon in nature. And what that means is initial conditions are very important, because once you get that feedback cycle going on, it can run away. Now let's talk about swans. So there was a time in Europe, when the world was written by European history, they thought all swans were white, because they've never seen a black swan. So you could count, say, 1 billion swans. It can never prove that all swans are white. Because if you see one black swan, then your statement, all swans are white, it's suddenly false. And they did find black swans in Australia, when they discovered Australia. So, Hume saw this, and it's a problem with induction. Like, you can look at confirming data, but that can never prove what you're saying. And how did it change my life? Because before I thought, I want to do this. I must find things that support what I'm going to do. Because it just makes sense. But if you know the problem of induction, maybe you should be finding things that disconfirm what you're trying to do. Because once you find one, move on to the next one. Otherwise, you just keep accumulating data. You're trying to support this thing, but you're not looking for things that will disconfirm it. And then suddenly, boom, unexpected happens. And it segues into fragility. So when a thing is fragile, it hates change. You know, if you have a glass and you send it to your relatives abroad, you put fragile because you want them to handle it with care. Because any change, it will break. Now, when we ask what's the opposite of fragile, most people would say robust, or robust and resilient. But that's not really the opposite. Because if it's fragile, you put fragile. If it's robust, you don't put anything. Because you send it, it will be the same condition when you send it. The real opposite of fragile is anti-fragile. So instead of putting fragile, I said, yes, please just handle me. So anti-fragile things are things that grow, that become better with a bit of stress, up to a certain extent. And Nassim Taleb discovered this. He named that phenomenon. And he discovered that most things that are alive are anti-fragile. Like, your bones need to be stressed continually. Because if they don't, they atrophy. You need the feedback happening. You need the little stresses. And I think this is why, when we learn in BCI, it's important to do prototyping. It's important to be wrong in a small scale than be wrong in a big scale. And this is applicable to many things in life. Like, banks are, at least investment banks, their business model is inherently fragile. So you accumulate money, and then boom, one event, you need to be bailed out. Whereas Silicon Valley or the venture capital is the opposite. You have small, defined losses. I'm going to invest 1 million. I know I'm going to lose 1 million if I lose it. But then once in a while, you get a unicorn like Facebook that pays off. everything you've lost in the past. So it's a different kind of strategies. You're looking for positive black swans versus being a victim of negative black swan. You can look at this as like in mythology. Fragile is like the sword of Damocles. So he said, oh, I want to be Dionysus, so I can enjoy having a party with, right? I'll make you king, but there's a sword hanging above your head. It's hanging by a hair of a horse. So anytime the hair can break and it will kill you. Robust is like phoenix. You kill it, the same thing comes back to life. Kill it, the same thing comes back to life. Anti-fragile is hydra. You chop off one head, two comes out. So what do you do in this kind of situation? There's this thing called the barbell strategy. Einstein did it. He had a safe job doing patent work, and then he worked on theory of relativity. You also have most of the greatest writers in the world weren't professional writers. They were doing something else, like Hemingway was a journalist. So there's this kind of strategy, which I've applied in my own life. I quit being a lawyer, and I'm doing all these odd jobs, so I'm working on the interesting things. I'm doing boring jobs or jobs that don't make me think, so that my free time I can spend thinking. And in a complex world, in a weird kind of way, you need less models, you need simple rules. And one of the most simple rules you can apply is they call skin in the game. Ask, when someone tells you something, are they going to lose something from it? Like, when you ask your doctor, the doctor tells you this, maybe you should ask, if I was your child, would you recommend the same diagnosis? Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of counterintuitive. You think, oh, I want them to be objective. But like in the time of Hammurabi in Babylon, if an architect designs a building and the building collapses and it kills the first son of the owner, then the first son of the architect will be put to death. I'm sure they never created houses that fall down because there's this thing that you have skin in the game, you're making sure it works. And this is important, like a lot of economists look at their models in the world like, we're maximizing utility. We're not like that. We're like nice stuff. We're not calculating the utility every time we purchase. At least I know I don't. So that model is like, and also as you would know, like in an economic model, they say everything remains constant except the price. But the world doesn't happen like that. Things move. And if you move money, other things move. So another shortcut is try to be conservative in what you do, but be more accepting. Too much accept. And I think people are doing the reverse. They're like so bold in telling other people what to do, but then they're so intolerant. It's like, oh, you question climate change, you must be like, I don't know. They need, it should be the opposite. You should be conservative in what you say, but then welcome other points of view. And yeah, lastly, maybe instead of adding things, question, what thing can I remove? If I remove this, will this thing still stand? If it still stands, then maybe you didn't need it. Because the less moving parts you have, the less complexity you would have. And the person who wrote the little prince said that, maybe perfection is not saying, what else can I add? But what else can I remove and it will still remain intact? Questions? We have 7 minutes for questions.
Oh, yeah.
Questions that are more interesting.
For that last one, too far away. For that last one, what about like when you're taking it away? Okay, so for buying negative, what happens for like trying to create efficiencies, just trying to remove stuff to make it a more efficient process to the point where, yeah, maybe you have a very highly strung system that if anything goes wrong, it will all come tumbling down.
Yeah. So maybe I should clarify that. The negative actually came from theology. Because how do you define God? If God is perfect, then how do you define perfect? Because the moment you define it, another thing can be thought of that's better than it. So they define God negatively. God is someone you cannot think of anything better than God, and that's God. So it's defined negatively. So it's not. I just mentioned the removing thing because we tend to, like, when we're sick, we tend to add medicine and drugs. But we save more lives quitting smoking. You remove something instead of adding. But really, these things are like in a spectrum. They're not binary. So if you stress the system too much, it will break. Even though you want a little bit of stress if it's an organic thing, you want a little bit of stress. So you want little fires in the bush, but not all the time. But if you don't have a little fires, you have one big fire that wipes up everything. So it's a bit of it's not an exact science. That's why it's organic.
That wasn't a great question, but I'll ask it anyway. So in the 4 years of BCIO so far, because you've come into this with a lot of broad experience, what's the most impactful thing that you've learned, do you think, so far?
Actually, I learned it recently when I was with Sophie and Ben, and we were in Animal Logic. Because we had this thinking, we were thinking, maybe things we do in BCI work because we made it work. Do you know what I mean? Because we're being assessed. And then we tried the methods on them. They had no idea what we were doing, and it worked. So I guess, what I learned is, yeah, there's something about following. I mean, you always have a skeptical mind, but sometimes you have to follow through and see. Instead of saying no straight away, like, that's not going to work. But how do you know? So I've seen the methods. The methods do work. The methods we learn over those 4 years.
Any other questions? I've got a question. Before, when you were talking about the whole exponential thing and how we can't think that way, to what extent can we teach ourselves against our own heuristics? Like, to what extent can we actually flip that thinking? Is it possible, or is it just ingrained within us?
It's really knowing your weakness. So there's Kahneman, they did the fast thinking, slow thinking. Yeah. So know when you're in the domain of, let's say, if it's art, then use the fast thinking. Because if you overanalyze art, that's true. You're going to lose the appreciation. But then if you're making a financial decision, you should do the slow thinking. Because otherwise, if you use the fast thinking, oh shit, I just bought a house that I didn't want. You know what I mean? I'm going to pay for the rest of my life. So it's, I guess, it's another lesson, is know when to use the right tool for the right thing. And what we learned in, actually, if I can add, what we learned in internship A, the Greenhalgh model, there was one method there where they said, always ask what works for whom, in what context, and why. And I think that's really a useful question. Because it forces you to think, who, context, it can be the same person, but different context, and why. Simply, one question really opens up a lot of things.
So my question is around Via Negativa and BCIR, because just had a conversation over lunch about how there should be more content in BCIR, in this year of BCIR. And it's a really interesting one for me because last year we were told that there was too much content. So we did a Via Negativa on it and we took away the content. And then there's also this other educational theory that we have to, in this future, unknown future, knowing is not going to be enough, but being is going to become more important. So instead of focusing on epistemology and knowledge that is provisional and going to be forgotten after your exams, you actually focus on the being of the person who's going through an education. And how do you build up that being? What are the tools? And so, in some senses, that is a big question for education. What is the via negativa of education? What are we taking away? If we take away the knowledge, then is it enough to focus just on being? Would you like to say something about that?
Yeah. My personal view is that with BCI, I think we need to do more making. And like, I did product design, and we did this pencil case where you have to back form it. And the shop the people helping us in the shop, they gave us a formula, a mathematical formula. And I don't think I ever understood that until I had to do it. Until what did the philosopher say? What is reality? Reality is the thing that resists your subjectivity. Because otherwise, I can just think anything. But reality is just the thing that I'm going to do this, and suddenly it hits you. Oh, why can't I do it? So there must be something there that's not me. Like, I think that's when children, that's where they learn who they are. It's when they bump into the wall and they go, well, I'm not that wall. So maybe I'm a different. So maybe if you do more making, the things like another example is from my internship. We went to the Philippines, and we looked at social enterprise, and we actually went to the place where one of the first people in the Philippines live, and we actually walked the path they do every day. We walked it. And when I was speaking, I said, I felt the problem space in my aching muscles and in my burnt skin. So I think there's nothing like making. And I guess materiality, it teaches you something, because you know the limitations. Otherwise, I can be PowerPoint about anything. But try making that, then that's the real learning.
Reality is what is this subject is. So I don't know what's going on. It's great.